Hello, you guys, Lagira Moon Goddess, and today we will be discussing, is spirituality the key to happiness? So, let's get into it. So, is spirituality the key to happiness? Personally, for me, when I became, I got into spirituality, I had a spiritual awakening in around 2020. And I can say personally for me, my spirituality has made me much more happier than me living without being spiritual. So, with that being said, spirituality to me is I really reflect on basically my life experiences and things that I've gone through throughout my lifetime. Even though I'm very young, I'm just a very reflective person, and with that being said, with my life experiences so far, I like to see my life experiences as learning opportunities. So, with that being said, with me being spiritual, I have become much more reflective about the different things that I have gone through in my life. Another benefit to spirituality, me being spiritual, I've became more, more reflective on my life and more aware of the different circumstances that I have gone through. So, with that being said, this self-reflection and being more reflective, it really has helped me to change my perspective on my life. Before I was led into spirituality, I was someone who was I was more I would say I had more of a negative mindset. In some ways, I am still a little bit pessimistic. I'm not really a super optimistic person. If I'm being honest, I don't really like super optimistic people. It's just the way I am. I'm going to be honest. But I used to be much more negative in my life. Like used to have much more negative thoughts. I was more pessimistic, and I even was more bitter and resentful in my life just because of some of the things that I went through growing up. So, with that being said, once I got led into spirituality, and I say I was led to it, I think with me, I've probably always been spiritual on some level. Even when I was a child, like when I was younger and as a child, I was very, even for my age as a little child, I was very, into deep thoughts. I'm a really deep thinker. And so, with that being said, I was always pondering different things, really reflecting on why is my life the way it is, reflecting on things in society, things of that nature. So, once I went through my spiritual awakening, it was almost like I started. How do I describe it? It's almost like I received knowledge some sort of way, like some extra knowledge. I'm more reflective and I became more open and aware of this knowledge because of my self reflective nature. hmm So, with that being said, I'm able to really think things on a different perspective than what I was before. Because, with that being said, before I was spiritual, I would always, when I had problems or situations arise, they usually teach us in society, most people get super emotional, which is normal. You go through emotions, you don't want to bottle your emotions and things of that nature. But honestly, when I became more spiritual, my mindset started to change and my way of thinking also changed. I now train myself. It's like I can seek solutions. I can create options. Whereas before, it was like I would just get stuck basically in my own emotions and it would keep me stuck instead of actually tackling a problem. So, that is basically how I've benefited from spirituality on that level. Now, with spirituality, I can say it's honestly made me happier because I'm no longer stuck into that, stuck in the cycle of bitterness, stuck in the cycle of being resentful, because I have a much more greater appreciation for life because my perspective has changed. My feelings towards my life has changed for the greater good. So I'm no longer dwelling on like the things that used to bother me growing up, the negative experiences that I've gone through because I realized, oh, well, if I hadn't gone through this, that, and the other, I wouldn't have learned what I know today. I wouldn't have the knowledge that I have today. So, spirituality has really opened up and changed and transformed my way of thinking for the greater good. And with that being said, this has basically contributed to my happiness because I have a different mindset than when I was, say, in my early teenage years or in my early 20s. It really has benefited me and made me much happier. And with that being said, I have a greater gratitude towards life as a whole. I'm happy to be here. I'm living my life as best as I can, like everybody else. But with that being said, I also have a greater appreciation for even like the little simple moments. Even, it can be as something as simple as, sitting outside enjoying nature or going out for a walk or even just appreciating, even though I'm not exactly where I would like to be in life, I still appreciate and love my life that I have now and I appreciate the present moment that I'm in. So, spirituality, I can personally say, has made me a much more happier person. hmm Yes. So, with that being said, and this isn't really a video to make people more spiritual, I'm not one of those people to force spirituality or anything like that. I'm just only speaking from my perspective that for me, being spiritual and becoming much more spiritual has has made me happier. I can honestly say this. I feel happier. And if you watch my previous videos on, especially the one on transmutation, it's like I am able to transmute my emotions and get into a positive emotional state much more often. And it's not even just the happiness. I know I'm talking about the happiness, but also other positive emotions. It's like I feel moments of bliss. I feel moments of contentment. I feel moments of peace. And I love, aside from the happiness, I really do love these other positive emotions. Oh my goodness. It really has, spirituality really has transformed me as a person. It's made me, I can honestly say, it's made me a better person. I feel much better than what I did when I was in my teenage years, than when I did in my early 20s. And so, being a spiritual person, I don't really hold on to as much resentment as I was before. I'm not as resentful. I'm happier. And I really have, with the way my mindset has changed, I really can enjoy my life on a much deeper level because again mindset has changed. It really is the biggest benefit to me becoming spiritual is really the mindset changes. When you're able to change your way of thinking, it really is beneficial because if you change your way of thinking, it really can make a big difference. And with my way of thinking and the way I've changed my way of thinking, it really has helped me become happier. I'm no longer dwelling on things that happened years ago. It used to be I would remember, like, for example, I would still be remembering people who I didn't like in high school or bad experiences from like high school. And for reference, I've been out of high school a little over 10 years. I don't need to be still thinking about high school. I don't need to be thinking about these people because one thing is for sure, they're probably more than likely not thinking of me. So why would I still be dwelling on negative experiences from high school? I don't need that negativity in my life. And with the way that I've changed my way of thinking, because it really is important to protect your mental state. So, with that being said, don't dwell on negative things in the past. You don't need to be thinking about, this is the benefit of spirituality. My mental state and what I think about, I have more better things to think about, instead of thinking of the negative. Think of something more positive. Think of something more productive. Being spiritual has helped me with this because I know that what I think about, time is valuable. I don't need to be wasting time thinking about things that don't really matter anymore. Thinking of things that's going to keep me bitter. Thinking of things that's going to keep me stuck. I don't need to be thinking of those things because with your thoughts, obviously your thoughts affect your mental state. Don't be caught up thinking about things that are irrelevant, thinking about things from the past, being stuck because what it is you get stuck. You don't want to be stuck thinking about these things that matter. With my spirituality, I'm thinking of more happier things. I'm thinking of things that's more, happier. Romanticizing my life, manifesting. These are the things that are important to me. And I also think of what I consider goddess content, which I have to do a video on that coming up soon. But goddess content is thinkily, I view myself in a way like a goddess, basically. I have to be thinking of things, certain things, and it keeps me on track. And it keeps me from basically thinking about what I call the wrong things. You don't want to think about the wrong things. So I focus on goddess content, goddess media. Some of those things are, of course, spirituality, intelligence, beauty, wisdom, things of that nature. And when I feel my mind and I'm thinking of these things, it makes me feel so much better. It makes me feel so much better. I feel better. And even with my way of thinking, I feel better and I can feel it within my body. I feel healthier. I feel happier. My mental is not stuck thinking on these things that are irrelevant, being stuck and caught up in negativity. So, with that being said, spirituality, I can say personally for me, is the key to happiness because it makes me happy. Being a spiritual person truly does make me happy. hmm And with that being said, so again, I think I've always been, like I said, even when I was younger, I think I've always been a spiritual person. My parents, they were religious. They're Christian, although they didn't make me go to church or anything like that. But I've never been a religious person. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not for me. But I think I've always been a spiritual person on some level, even before I was fully aware of it. So maybe that's what led me into when I first went into my spiritual awakening. So, with that being said, I can say spirituality for me is the key to happiness. And if you are a spiritual person like I am, I would honestly say, because spirituality to me is very important, hold on to your spirituality. If you're a spiritual person, hold on to it. Do not let all these other people, especially these really negative people or whoever, don't let anybody deter you from it. Hold on to your spirituality because it is precious. For me, it's like a treasure. I don't want anyone taking it from me. No one's going to deter me from my own personal path. Stay on your path of spirituality because with being spiritual, I can also say that I've grown so much as a person. It's like I'm still evolving. I'm growing in maturity. I'm growing in knowledge. And I'm gaining so much more insight with being spiritual. So, if you're spiritual, hold on to your spirituality because it's probably one of the most important things that you can have to your benefit. Stay spiritual. Don't let nobody deter you. You know, if you don't want to be religious, there's no law that says you have to be religious. You don't have to be forced into religion. You can believe in your spirituality as much as people believe in religion. Don't let people push you into a different path or deter you from your spiritual growth. Stay on your path to spirituality because, as someone who is a spiritual being, I can honestly say that it's one of the most important things that I have in my life. So, with that being said, maintain your spirituality, continue to grow, and you're going to surpass many other people and grow so much in your life. Like I've said, the knowledge that I've gained from my spirituality, the knowledge that I've gained from being reflective, listening upon spirits, and things of that nature, I've grown so much. It is truly a blessing for me to be a spiritual person, and I can honestly say this because the transformation that I've gone through over the years is like night and day. I love my spirituality, and I'm going to hold on to my spirituality. Hopefully, all the way until I'm, of old age, because it is that important to me. So, with that being said, spirituality for me is the key to my happiness. And so, if you like this video, leave a comment down below, and I will check you later in the next one. Bye!